Hello and welcome to CollectaThoughts, the show where I collect my thoughts on video games, and today we're gonna be reviewing Pokémon Brilliant Diamond and I guess Shining Pearl by proxy, but I played Brilliant Diamond for disclosure. And I'll start by saying, I'll be honest, I didn't think I would be playing this game, mostly because the game I played right before this was Shin Megami Tensei 5, which, you know, is like this game, but good. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy Pokemon, but I wasn't really very excited for this one. And one of the main reasons for that, personally, was the graphics. This one has a very chibi art style, which I'm usually not a huge fan of, and also one of the main things that I felt was it looked worse than Let's Go Pikachu. The world in general looks less detailed and also has less complex effects like lighting and even the way the grass moves. Which, to be honest, I wasn't very surprised when I noticed that. Mostly because Let's Go Pikachu or Eevee was a game that often had noticeable slowdowns in the more detailed scenes. But even with that aside, Pokémon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl feels often rushed in its visual design. For example, there were quite a lot of moments where I thought that maybe there were graphics missing due to the way they were displayed. Like for example, when you fight a gym leader and that pre-fight animation where you get like a stripe and then the gym leader in pose was so simple and honestly bland that I thought that it had to be something missing. Another aspect was also the hidden moves. Obviously in a Pokemon game there's a lot of hidden moves that play into the progression of the story. Things like Rock Smash and Surf. And here in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, when you do one of those moves you get a generic Pokemon rather than the Pokemon you actually taught the move to, which is again feels like a rushed thing. It was to the point where I thought because I managed to get this game and play it a few days before release, and maybe it was because it didn't have the launch patch, because you know, games now all need launch patches. But anyways, after I got the patch, which was 2 gigs for what was basically a 4 gig install, and I couldn't tell you what that patch fixed. And after reading the patch notes online, that makes sense. The patch really just adds multiplayer functionality and also post-game content. Also the addition of the respective legendary Pokemon for these games on the start menu, which before was literally just a title, so I guess that's a good change. Regardless though, it feels very rushed, which I think a remake really shouldn't be, because then what's the point in making a remake? The game honestly doesn't look bad, but it also just doesn't look good. Another problem I had with it, and this is a minor one to be fair, was that, you know those hills in Pokemon, the ones where you can jump from one side but not the other? There were weird moments where, specifically when they were in a vertical position, where it was kind of hard to tell which side of the thing you were on, which is an odd problem this game often has of feeling very two-dimensional, regardless of it being very much a 3D game. Adding to that is also some inconsistencies graphically, like for example, the water is clearly a much higher quality, or I guess maybe a better way to say it is, it has a much higher complexity than any other field in the game. So it kind of contrasts in a bad way. So visually, while this game is okay, and because of the way it looks, it actually ends up being a lot more friendly on your battery life, it is also very messy and it will annoy a lot of people, I believe, and it did annoy me to some extent, even if I eventually just kind of didn't care. Now let's talk about the gameplay, and this is also the reason why I played this game, because I had never played Pokemon Diamond, a game I had never played but always wanted to, especially because I remember growing up and seeing all the advertisement for it, and me not being able to play it because, well, I had a PSP. So to me this was like my opportunity of playing this as a new game, even though I could at any time go and play the original at this point. Regardless though, as a Pokemon game, this one is a fairly good one, if also very simple. It is very linear, despite the open-endedness and the various hidden paths that you can only open later on with the hidden moves. It very much has a linear path to it, which is fine. I guess the more interesting things to mention here are some of the extra activities, which of course I have no way of comparing it to the original game, so if I don't know if this is new or old, I'm sorry. But the more notable things we have, like the kind of fashion show for Pokemons. Kind of, it's really isn't that. It's more just like a rhythm game where your Pokemon raises specific stats like cuteness and coolness. I'll be honest, I didn't spend much time with this one. It wasn't very engaging because the gameplay you do in it isn't very engaging. It's a very simple rhythm game. The other, maybe more engaging piece of gameplay is the tunnel system. Basically a whole map that's built as being a tunnel system under the island, which has a bunch of Pokemons you can go and catch. But honestly, I also didn't really see much of a reason to engage too much in this one, besides maybe grinding if you want. Because even though I mostly stuck to doing the main quest and progressing the game without really trying to catch them all, I still saw most Pokemons in the Pokédex for this game. So the game in general already does a good job of making you go through all the Pokemons it has to offer. Now, in terms of post-game, there's also quite a bit of content, like the Battle Zone or some extra quests involving some of the legendary Pokemons from this game, and it's surprisingly interesting. I'll be honest, I haven't really delved too much into it, and I don't really plan to because I know it is gonna be just a couple notches higher in difficulty than actual Pokemon, which I always thought was weird. Like, you have to beat Pokemon to actually get a decent difficulty in it. Like, just give us difficulty options at the beginning of the game. I don't know why they don't do that. Regardless though, speaking of difficulty, I have to talk about the Elite Four. I'm not gonna spoil it, but all I'm gonna say is they all freaking had one attack that completely obliterated my Pokemon. It was really annoying and it made it a real chore to play through them. That being said, you can kinda abuse them. You're supposed to kinda go to the beginning once you die, but you can also just save between them, so you can just load a save instead. So you technically don't have to start from the beginning. But of course, by doing that, you're also missing out on the quite large amount of XP their battles do, regardless of if you win or lose. Also the money, but because it is the Elite Four, you might be spending more money on the items you're taking into the game rather than the money you gain from fighting them individually. So potato. Also, if you're wondering what move it was that I was talking about, I'll spoil it right now. Close your ears for 5 seconds if you don't want to hear it. It was Earthquake. Anyways, it was annoying. Because it's Pokemon and it's very easy for most of the game, I don't usually care to make a competitive team. I've just kind of tried to have different types of Pokemon, and within those different types of Pokemon, have the ones that I kind of like. For reference, I picked Piplup, which I took to the Elite Four, so that tells you what kind of Pokemon player I am. That being said though, I still think that the Elite Four is a bit of a weird difficulty spike in a game that is very forgiving for the most part. Overall though, gameplay is fine. If you like Pokemon Diamond, if you like that DS era of Pokemon, I think you'll probably find something to enjoy here. Speaking of that, of course, we also have the story, which instead of focusing on Team Rocket, it focuses on Team Galactic, which has really crazy ideas. And it's very funny because I finally have the context to all those memes about, the lore of these Pokemon games. With these very end of the world, honestly surprisingly like Shin Megami Tensei themes. But aside from the odd diegetic kind of line of text you can find, but it is still very much told like a kid's story. Yeah, Team Galactic has some crazy ideas, but they're still defeated by a 10-year-old with some Pokemons. And in my personal opinion, it's not like this is new to Pokemon. Remember how much of an edgelord Mewtwo was? He still is. Regardless though, it was fine. There were some cool visual moments that, I'll be honest, probably look better on the Nintendo DS with its kind of more pixelated art style that doesn't make the sky look like the RGB panel on a flat screen TV. But I've talked about the visuals enough. What I want to talk about now that also pertains to the Nintendo DS is the soundtrack. Obviously the soundtrack here has been remade or remastered, whatever you want to call it. I don't know how much they changed it, but once again, I can imagine this sounding better with that more lo-fi MIDI sound of the Nintendo DS. As it doesn't really translate to a higher quality like it does here, it can often feel a bit messy. It almost feels like the sound is too busy and there's too much going on, which just kind of makes it distracting. Which, again, because I don't have that point of reference, it could just be this game and how they chose to remake that music. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but personally I was not a huge fan. And that's kind of my opinion on this whole game. It's fine, but probably the Nintendo DS is still the more polished and definitive version. I mean, the game looks nice. I played it a little bit just to kind of get an idea, and I mean, the pixelated art of the DS Pokemon game still looks quite nice in my opinion. Regardless though, that's not a review of that game. It's a review of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which as a remake or a remaster, it's really not anything special, but it is still a functional game that I had some enjoyment with. So for those reasons, I'll be giving Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl a 6 out of 10. Now, in terms of recommendations here, I'll be honest, if you have a DS or if you have a Nintendo 3DS or you have a PC that can do emulation, or even a phone, I guess phones now can do DS emulation as well. So honestly, I would say give that a try first and see if you enjoy it, and then just kind of play through it. Especially if older graphics don't bother you, because graphically it's not like this new one is particularly amazing either. But if you only have a Switch and you want to experience Diamond and Pearl, then I guess this isn't the worst way to do it. That being said, I would still recommend waiting for a price drop or a discount, which is more believable, because usually not only Nintendo but especially Pokemon games often have a hard time getting price drops for some reason. But also at the end of the day, it's not an amazing game, it's not a horrible game, and you're not really making a bad decision either way, I think. Regardless of any of that though, I hope that you enjoyed watching, and if so, please consider subscribing, liking, and commenting, all the things you can do for free here on YouTube. And regardless of that, I hope you're having a good day, and goodbye.